Hello Internet, Seth Skorikowski, and today I want to discuss the Call of Cthulhu classic, The Westchester House. Written by Elizabeth A. Walcott and published by Chaosium, The Westchester House has been in print since 1983, starting with The Asylum and Other Tales. It later appeared in 1990's Cthulhu Casebook. Neither supplement is in print any longer, but keepers can now find the adventure in 2006's The Secrets of San Francisco supplement. Coming in at an 8 whopping pages, the adventure is easy to run in a single session. And while it appears at first that it's only appropriate for detective-style player characters, the adventure can be played by any character regardless of their occupation. The setting of the story is the strange and fantastic Westchester Mansion, a fictitious version of the very real, strange, and fantastic Winchester Mansion. There are a ton of supernatural elements here, with seances and hauntings. It's beautiful. While always possible, the adventure can be played without the need for combat, so non-combat inclined keepers should enjoy that. But please keep in mind that combat is always a big possibility, and in my own experience, it can become pretty harrowing in this adventure. The uniqueness of the setting and the fact that it's a single session game is why I recommend it. However, after this point, I'm going to be laying out the spoilers. So any players in the audience should stop here and tell their keepers to come check this out as a possible adventure for them to run. Now for those of you still watching, let's get into the real meat and potatoes of why this adventure has remained in print for over 33 years. The big twist of the Westchester House is that it's all a lie. There is zero mythos or supernatural elements to it, but instead the work of clever thieves pretending to be ghosts. However, the players don't know this. Your job is to keep them believing there's a supernatural connection as long as possible, and it gives you plenty to work with. So earlier when I said there are a ton of supernatural elements here, with seances and hauntings, it's beautiful. I was totally lying to throw your players off track, so you're welcome. If you're like me and raised on Scooby-Doo cartoons, this adventure is for you. I personally ran the scenario with 2 players, so it doesn't require a large party to play. The plot is that a valuable painting was stolen years before and never recovered. The villains all believe that the painting is still on the property that the Westchester House now stands. So you have 3 completely different teams of villains here, so even clever investigators might not figure them all out before they strike. Miss Westchester hires the PCs to investigate these strange happenings, and it would make sense if the PCs were professional detectives or professional occultists. But keep in mind that Miss Westchester is a bit crazy, and it's not entirely implausible that she got the PC's names and numbers from a Ouija board or some other occultic means and is now offered to hire them with generous pay despite their complete lack of any experience simply because the spirits told her to. While short, the adventure still has enough room to provide a few handouts that the characters can discover during their research. Art, however, is a little thin. In fact, we only get one picture, which is from events long before the game begins, so it's not really useful in-game. However, the real Winchester House is well documented, so there's an enormous variety of real photographs that you can pass to your players. One of the biggest problems with the adventure is a near lack of maps. In fact, we only get a single image of an important hallway. Now, if you're a keeper that doesn't use maps, then that's not going to be much of an issue for you, but for me it was a tad annoying. While I was unable to find the floor plan for the actual Winchester Mansion, you can find images of the grounds from current tourist maps. This was a good starting point for me to take and then add a few features to, such as the farms and the orchards and the stone ring. As far as the house interior, it's probably not worth it for you to map the entire thing. I mean, it's 150 rooms. Instead, what I recommend is that you drop a few partial maps of key areas, such as Miss Westchester's bedroom suite, the dining room, the area where Jack's gang is doing the construction, and so on. Then just make a list of potential rooms that the players can investigate later, but they aren't necessarily on the map. They're just good for you to quickly come up with an interesting room on the fly. You don't need to make any of your maps elaborate more than you feel necessary, but remember to have fun with them and add plenty of quirks, such as doors to nothing, or windows to other rooms, or windows on the ceiling and floor, or plenty of use of Miss Westchester's most favorite numbers. Once again, refer to the real house for inspiration. The key to the Westchester House is the mood. Keepers should never lose sight of that. One idea is that I recommend to begin with the initial meeting in Miss Westchester when the PCs arrive at their house and knock on the front door. One story about the real Mrs. Winchester is that she never opened the front door for anyone fearing ghosts. So the servants are under strict orders to ignore anyone knocking or ringing the front bell. So even though the PCs can clearly see a maid or a butler through the glass, the servant won't acknowledge them. Either the PCs will give up and they'll circle the house and find a different entrance, or you could have one of the servants, like a gardener nearby, kind of give a little bit of a hinting cough, go around, sort of thing, just to signal that this is going to be a little strange, but they just need to keep going. Once they do, they're then welcomed like honored guests and brought in to see Mrs. Westchester. But while they're going around the house, you have a good chance to have them either see Jack's gang performing their construction job, or have a strange encounter with Franny, who's pretending to be mentally disabled. Speaking of Franny, use her a lot. Have her follow the PCs around, saying that maybe she has a crush on one of them or a fascination with one of them. Have her display some of her creepy psychic abilities for them, and have her just innocently around all the time. Since she knows the house better than the player characters do, she can always just appear when they're not expecting it. And don't forget about Liza. A proper seance or session of spirit photography is definitely in order to keep the players convinced that she's a legitimate medium. I suggest that you look up a few of the historic tricks that mediums and magicians used to perform at the time, so you can tell the players what it is their characters see. But later, once it's revealed that they're complete frauds, you can explain how the cons were actually performed. Once again, it's a lot of homework, but it is totally worth it. The module gives a few other suggestions for not just the fake mediums, but for Jack's gang and Warren Johnson. With Warren, I had him impersonating a butler that befriended the PCs, and he followed them around, offering a lot of helpful advice. Then he started acting a little funny when the PCs discovered the hidden room, and he excused himself. Later, the PCs were asking about the butler that they hadn't seen since, and it comes out that that butler had been fired 2 weeks before, and Mrs. Westchester just simply hadn't remembered that she'd fired him. Keep in mind that people as wealthy as Miss Westchester will always have servants around her at all times. So between that and Franny running around, the PCs are going to be watched by their enemies almost non-stop. All in all, I find that the Westchester House is a great adventure. Despite its lack of supernatural elements, my players took a lot of enjoyment in how well they had been fooled, and remember it even more fondly than most of their other adventures because it was so different. The biggest obstacle that keepers will need to be aware of is that they need to prepare beforehand all the maps and their own personal research. They're also going to have to be on top of their game when it comes to improvising, because we have 3 separate enemies working against the PCs, and any action that the PCs make could cause response from one or all 3 of them. Thank you for watching, and if you want to see more videos, please like and subscribe.